Welcome to another video edition by Dirk eTeacher, bringing you great ideas from the classroom and media for the classroom. Active to passive voice number 3, verb tenses. Contents. 1. Identify the verb, subject and object. Number 2. Golden rule. Circle the verb first. 3. Active to passive voice step by step. Please read, speak and write along. Click the link below the video for appropriate worksheets in PDF format. Active to passive voice. SVO stands for subject, verb and object. Active voice. The subject does the action. There's our sample sentence. The class writes essays about their holidays. Singular subject, singular verb, writes. In some countries, the class will still be viewed as plural, so just change the subject and the agreement of subject and verb accordingly. So let's continue with the rest of this slide. Step 1. Identify the verb, subject and object. Verb first. What is a verb here? Writes. That's the action. Now the question. Who or what writes? The answer is the class. Therefore, the class is subject. The class writes who or what? Essays about their holidays. That's our object. So now we have subject, verb, and object, and we are ready to do the next round of steps that will follow hereafter. Active to passive voice. Steps 2 to 6. Subject, verb, and object. There's our form again that we used on the previous slideshow. 1. Identify the verb, subject, and object. We've done that. 2. Establish the tense of the active voice. It will come hereafter. 3. Move active object to subject of passive voice position. 4. Conjugate the verb be, have. 5. Add past participle of the main verb. 6. Add the subject of the active sentence after by, the preposition by, in the passive voice. We continue with our sentence from the previous slide. The class writes essays about their holidays. The tense is present simple tense. Here's our sentence. Our verb is writes. Now we can chop the rest off. Who or what writes? The class, subject. The class writes who or what. Essays about their holidays. That's object. And that is an indication of the active voice. Now we're ready to start laying out the parts of the passive voice. We start with what was the object of the active voice. That now becomes the subject of the passive voice. Essays about their holidays are, why? Because this subject now is plural. Essays are. There's our past participle of write, written by the class. And that's the last part, at the subject of the active sentence after by in the passive. And that is our passive voice complete. So the sentence was in the active. The class writes essays about their holidays. Now it becomes, or has become, essays about their holidays are written by the class in the passive voice. Note well, active voice, the class performs the action. Passive voice, essays, is the receiver of the action. Essays, the new subject of the passive sentence, is now the receiver of the action. Active to passive voice, steps 1 to 6, subject, verb, and object. We continue here. We keep our form here on standby for people who still need some support with the steps. We have a new sentence here. Lisa studied geography. The tense is past simple tense. So Let's break it up. We've got our verb, studied. Who or what studied? Lisa, subject. Lisa studied who or what? Geography, object, active voice. So now we're ready for the next part here. Now we move our object of the active to the subject position of the passive voice. Geography, it's singular subject, it's past tense, so it becomes was for the verb be. After that now, our past participle, that of study, it becomes studied. And after that, now we can say by, our preposition by, and we can add the subject of the active sentence at the end, and now it is actually called the agent. So let us just wrap up. That's the passive voice now. Active voice, Lisa performed the action. Passive voice, geography is the receiver of the action. And that concludes our steps here for Lisa studied geography. Geography was studied by Lisa. Active to passive voice steps 1 to 6. Subject, verb, and object. We have a new sentence. 4 pilots were flying the helicopters. The step number 2 is it's past continuous tense. So there's our sample sentence now. It is now divided into the different parts. Remember we said verb first. So start with the verb. Were flying is an indication of the past continuous tense. So that's our grammatical construction. Now we ask the question, who or what were flying? Our answer is 4 pilots, and now that's our subject. Next question, 4 pilots were flying who or what? The helicopters, that's object, and it's our active sentence. Now we're ready to start packing out or laying out the passive voice sentence. We start with the object of the active sentence. It becomes the subject of the passive sentence. The helicopters, note well, it is plural. It's past continuous plural. So the next thing is it will be were, almost like in the active sentence. Now we have to add a ing verb. And that's why we say being. The helicopters were being. Now comes our past participle of fly. It's flown. So our grammatical construction here for this sentence is were being flown. We add by, our preposition, and after that the subject of the active sentence. So 4 pilots were flying the helicopters, active sentence. The helicopters were being flown by the pilots, by 4 pilots, passive voice. Let's just wrap up with some notes here. Active voice, 4 pilots were performing the action in the active voice, and in the passive voice, the helicopters are at the receiving end. That's our subject of the passive sentence. Now that's why we say it as a unit. The helicopters, that's our subject, is the receiver. Active to passive voice steps 1 to 6 SVO, subject, verb, and object. We have another sentence here, and this time the farmer has bought 2 case tractors. It's a brand of tractor. Our tense here, we have a different tense here, so we can have an experience of how to navigate with different tenses in English. 2, present perfect tense. So that has bought is our indication. So let's look at our sentence when we've divided it into subject, verb, and object. Has bought is our verb construction. Who or what has bought? The farmer, subject. The farmer has bought who or what? 2 case tractors, active voice. Now we're ready to lay out the passive voice. We start with 2 case tractors. 2 case tractors, that's a receiver, the subject receiver for the passive voice. 2 case tractors have. Now we have to add been to make it compatible with the perfect tense. have been, then the past participle. So there's our grammatical construction. Have been bought for present perfect tense. And then we add by, our preposition by, and after that now comes the subject of the active sentence to conclude our sentence in the passive. And our sentence now reads, it was, the farmer has bought 2 case tractors. 2 case tractors have been bought by the farmer, passive voice. Let us just wrap up with some notes again. Active voice, the farmer has performed the action. Passive voice, 2 case tractors receives the action. Active to passive voice steps 1 to 6, subject, verb, and object. They will collect a lot of plastic bottles tomorrow. That's our sample sentence here. Step 2, future simple tense. Let us break it up into the different parts here. For future simple tense, our grammatical construction is will collect. So it's will plus a verb in its infinitive form. So that's our verb. Now, who or what will collect? They, subject. They will collect a lot of plastic bottles. A lot of plastic bottles is our object. And we finish with the time word there, tomorrow, active voice. Now we start with a lot of plastic bottles. Our object of the active is now our subject of the passive. A lot of plastic bottles, it's plural, but it doesn't matter for future tense, will be collected. Now, because they is a random subject, we chose to leave it out here. It doesn't do any harm not to write it, so it's fine just to say a lot of plastic bottles will be collected, and our sentence finishes then with our time word tomorrow. And that is our passive voice. You can, if you want to say by them, but it's not really mandatory to do it here. Our second example on this page here, on this slide here, is Miss Brenda is using many examples. This time around we're doing present continuous tense. Miss Brenda is using many examples, active voice. So what is our grammatical construction here for the verb? Is using, verb. Who or what is using? Miss Brenda, subject. Miss Brenda is using who or what? Many examples, object, active voice. Now we're ready to start with the passive voice. Many examples, it's a receiver, it's a subject. That's why it's color-coded green also. And now our grammatical construction is are being used. The being is actually an indication of a continuous action. So the are is for plural, many examples, are, many examples, more than one, are being used, and used is our past participle form of use. Now we put by there also. We have a definitive subject in the active voice. So now we're going to add it here at the end. By Miss Brenda. And that concludes our passive voice sentence. Thank you very much for watching, listening, and participating. For written practice, click this link at the bottom of the video, beenthere.co.za PDF packages. Each PDF is based on one of these videos. Refer to the video number at the top of the PDF sheet. Please return to the video if you need more help. For similar and other videos, click the YouTube link at Dirk E Teacher Playlists in the description below. Bye. Take care.